Dear relationship cynics and relationship romantics, my name is Monice, and you are listening to the Romantic Cynic podcast. On this episode, I wanted to talk about a type of relationship that we may have all experienced at one point or another, or maybe it's a type of relationship you are in currently. It is called the situationship. You're not quite friends, but you're not exclusive either. So I hope you join me on today's episode where we might mix in some laughter, maybe some tears, romance, and of course, some cynicism. Welcome to episode 19. What is a situationship? A situationship is a casual, undefined, non committed relationship. You guys aren't quite friends, but you're not exclusively seeing each other. Maybe you're both are seeing other people on the side, or one person's seeing other people, and maybe one person has more of this exclusive mentality because there hasn't been any type of conversation around having a more committed relationship. You have fun together and maybe you are intimate with one another, but the titles are just not there. And typically, from my own experience, you use the term when someone asks you, are you seeing anyone? You use the term, well, it's complicated. Now, if you've been watching my episodes or listening to my episodes thus far, you know I always like to give a real world example, and it's always from my catalog of experiences. And if this is your first time listening or watching my podcast, welcome and thank you. I hope you continue watching and listening to my episodes. So my example of a situationship took place probably, I'd say, a couple years after my first real relationship. My first real relationship was just volatile. It was on the point, well, not on the point, but there was a lot of verbal and emotional abuse that was in that relationship. It's not something that I hope no one has to experience that type of relationship style, but unfortunately, a lot of people do. And this is not just exclusive to women. Men experience this, that type of relationship as well. So with my example, this guy I had was pseudo dating is what I like to call. I say pseudo dating at the time, a while back. He and I actually grew up together. We've known each other for a very long time. We were friends. We knew who we were. Our families knew each other. And while growing up, I just never liked him in that way. He was just a friend. I didn't have like romantic feelings for him until I got a little older. I did kind of have a crush on him around, my junior, senior year of high school, but nothing ever came out of it. Shortly after I kind of like I had a crush on him, I started dating my first official boyfriend, I guess you can say, at the time. And so we always, even when I was dating this one guy, we kind of kept in touch, but it wasn't like anything more than just kind of like a casual like friend, until a few years later. We became really close because, we saw each other regularly just, because we were kind of in the same company. We did the same activities together. So we were around each other for quite a while. And when we kind of I always say pseudo started dating, he had asked me this one time, he had asked some questions about my first relationship, and I kind of told him, some things. I didn't go into too much detail because at the time I'm pretty private of a person, and I don't like to give out too much details to people. But I felt comfortable enough to give him some details as to what happened in that relationship. And I remember him shortly after I kind of had that conversation with him, he had told me or said to me that he would never treat me or treat me in that fashion, and he would never hurt me the way the first boyfriend had. And so, as a girl, that makes you feel good. I mean, that would make anyone feel good, regardless if you're a guy or a girl. Like to hear someone, especially someone that you've known for so long, that you thought you could have trusted to not hurt you, would understand. And it was nice to hear how he wanted to treat me. And so, we went on dates together and we hung out. Like he met some of my friends, I met some of his friends. We partied together. I mean, our families knew each other, so we were very much like involved with each other's lives, but we never had that exclusive title of boyfriend girlfriend. And I wanted that very much at the time, but it just never transpired. So to kind of fast forward a little bit, he ended up dating this other girl. It was more exclusive, and it really kind of hurt my feelings because he just couldn't come out and verbally tell me, hey, like I no longer, like I want to date this person, so therefore I think we should, kind of stop seeing each other. But at the same time, it's complicated to like kind of have that conversation only because we weren't exclusive or anything like that. But it would have been nice to hear, the honesty from him. And I am really big on honesty in a relationship. I am the type of person that I've experienced this in other casual relationships before. It's like, hey, if you get tired of me, if you, don't no longer want to see me, see each other, or if you no longer want to date me, just let me know, and I won't have to be the type of person. And I think a lot of girls do this where if something ends but it doesn't like officially end, it just kind of like he just kind of like, I guess you can say he kind of disappeared from my life, kind of essentially, where you ask yourself a lot of questions. And so I knew for me, I asked a lot of questions like, what did I do wrong? What did I miss? And sometimes you just have to take people for face value. And even though you might be disappointed, at least I was disappointed. I kind of had to move on from there. But just to kind of tell you or share with you how I really found out how he dated this one girl is because we ended up going to, there's like a group of us. We all decided to go to the beach during one hot summer day. We all went there. I think there was like a group of 6 or 7 of us. And so I'm hanging out with the girl that he's exclusively dating without me knowing that he's exclusively dating her. And so her and I are just chit-chatting and trying to like get to know each other a little bit. And she turns to me and she asks me, hey, do you think he would ever cheat on me? And when I heard that, everything made sense prior to our pseudo relationship ending. And I remember like looking over at him, and he wasn't anywhere near us. Like he and his guy friends were kind of just like goofing off, and her and I were just sitting down together talking. And I remember looking over at him and then saying it with conviction and complete honesty. I told her, no, he would never cheat on her or never cheat on you. At that point, I knew that he didn't even bother telling her about me at all. And at that point, it made me realize that, at least at the time, I felt like I was worth nothing. Like I meant nothing, even though he and I had known each other for a long time, because he couldn't even have the decency to be honest with me. And our friendship kind of ended there, at least for me. I haven't talked to him in quite a few years. Every once in a while we'll talk and just like it's a casual conversation, but just knowing that I was in a situationship with him really hurt, because I knew for me I wanted more. Now, one of the problems with me, and I think, I've matured over the years and I've gotten better with it, where I don't tend to ask for what I want. I don't tend to say the words out loud. I might be thinking them, but something usually kind of stops me or hinders me because, like everyone, I'm afraid of rejection. I'm afraid of hearing the word no from someone. And I think I have more of a fear of hearing no just because my previous relationship, my now my marriage that had ended, my then husband, now ex-husband at the time, he always said no to me. So I kind of have this fear, in other words, of hearing the word no. So I tend not to ask for things. In that situationship, I felt like I didn't matter. And that's really hurtful because one, I learned a lot about myself. I learned the type of people that some guys, not all guys, can be towards, women. And if we were all just a little bit more honest with each other, I think we would be in a much, much better place in the world. So that is my lovely example of a situationship. I think situationships can work for some people if both parties have that expectation. Like, this is the expectation. We're just in a situationship. It's casual. I don't want anything exclusive, but you have to have that communication with one another. And then you have to have that almost agreement of knowing you're both in a situationship. And again, it can work for, both parties, but I think what ends up happening, at least for one of the parties, you end up developing maybe more feelings or deeper feelings for the person where you all of a sudden want more. So if you are in a situationship like that, or you're not sure if you're in a relationship like that, here's some of the characteristics that you can kind of, look for. So one would be the relationship is undefined, right? Where if you take, say you take this person out and you introducing them to friends or whatnot, and you can't quite say that they're your boyfriend or you're their girlfriend, but you can't say that they're your friend. You can just say this is someone I'm dating, but it's not like defined. You ask the question like, what are we? And if you're asking that question because you don't know, you could very easily be in a situationship. Another characteristic, is there's no consistency in the relationship. Like, you maybe you text casually, good morning, but it's not consistent. Like, you don't do that every day, or maybe you go a week or 2 weeks, or even a month without really seeing each other, or not even really dating or going out. There's the consistency is missing in that type of relationship. A big one is there's no mention of a future. You guys are casually seeing each other, but maybe you've never really talked about like what the future holds for both of you together. There's times where maybe one party wants more. You maybe you've envisioned a life together, but there's no like actual real conversation as to like, hey, this is the future I want with you. Or, in some circumstances, it's more of, hey, this is the future I envision for myself, but the other person isn't mentioned in their future. So, if there has not been any type of mention of a future together, likely you are in a situationship. Another thing is sometimes the connection might seem like it's superficial, where, you don't dig down and get to know the other person on a much deeper, meaningful level, where you might understand like, hey, this is what they do for work. This is the sports they like. These are maybe some of the books they read, but you don't talk about like, maybe you don't talk about your fears. Maybe you don't talk about your dreams. Maybe you don't talk about your childhood or your family or your friends or your dreams or your aspirations. Everything like that is something that you typically end up talking about when you are in a more exclusive, official relationship. And if everything is just like base level, very just, not being willing to dig in deeper to the other person, again, that is probably a situationship that you might be experiencing. Now, I think a big thing to really look at is if, at least, I can only speak for myself. I can't speak for everybody, but there might come a point where you do develop really strong emotional feelings for the person. You develop this sense of wanting more. You feel like you want more, and you have a desire to pursue this relationship further. And you might get to a point where you don't know where the other person stands because you haven't had that conversation with the person. You haven't had that communication of, hey, I really like or I really love you and I want more with you. I want a future together with you. But maybe at some point you yourself are afraid to ask the question because you're afraid to hear what the answer is. I think that we all have to be really careful in those type of relationships, because if you truly want more from the person themselves, you have to really take a step back and face like reality. What is your reality telling you? What does your reality look like right now? And if the person that maybe you want to spend the rest of your life with this person, but if you don't have that communication, if you don't tell them how you feel, you're going to be stuck in this place of just waiting and wanting, because maybe, like me, you're afraid to ask for more. I think a big part of that is when you don't know where you stand and you don't know where the other person stands, and you want something more out of this relationship, and now all of a sudden you become an overthinker and you overanalyze. And all of a sudden, like, your mental well-being isn't properly being taken care of anymore because you might feel stuck in this limbo. If you are feeling like that in a situationship, or you're feeling like that right now because you're not sure if you're in a situationship, you have to ask, and you have to really put yourself out there. It is okay to be afraid. It's okay to find it kind of scary. And maybe you have this desire of not wanting to ask because you're afraid of the answer. You don't want to waste your life in a relationship, a situationship where you want so much more, but the other person is unsure. And having an open dialogue of, telling the person how you feel is going to save you a lot of mental energy. It's going to save you a lot of emotional distress. It's going to save you a lot of heartache. Yes, say, for example, the person that you're in a situationship with doesn't want more. Yes, it'll be hurtful, and you might go through this emotional upheaval where you're just sad and you cry, and maybe you kind of become a little bit of a recluse because maybe you're heartbroken. It's better to kind of face that reality right now and know for a fact that there is no future with this person versus just wasting your life away. That is the worst thing that you can do, because at the end of the day, you don't want to regret, what could have been for you. Now, best case scenario is maybe the person decides, yes, I want to be in an exclusive relationship with you, and I've just been kind of afraid to ask. And now you guys are both in a committed relationship, and maybe you are able to plan a future together. And that is the best case scenario, but you can't be afraid. Well, you can be afraid, but you can't stop yourself from having that conversation. I know with a lot of my episodes, I always talk about communication, and communication is so important in our daily lives. It is so important in our friendships and our relationships with our family and our relationships with loved ones, and maybe even our partner. Like, communication is so important, but communicating is going to save you a lot of time. It's going to save you a lot of heartache, and it's going to save you from becoming, emotionally depressed. Like that is something that we should not have to deal with. We should be able to be in a relationship with someone that wants to be in a relationship with us. And that in itself is going to be a beautiful thing. But if you're in a if you're in a situationship where the person just doesn't want the same things as you, it's time to move on. Like, do better for yourself. At the end of the day, you have to do what's right for your well-being, physical, emotional, mental, everything like that. Like what you have to do for yourself, for your own well-being is going to be so important. And you are going to figure out that, yes, it's hurtful and painful right now, but guess what? That is only temporary, because there's another whole life out there for you that you're missing out on because maybe you're in a situationship right now. So I hope you found some insight on, being in a situationship. And if you have been in a situationship or you're currently in a situationship, stop and think and reflect like where you were at that point and where you are or where you could be in the future. So thank you for listening to my spiel today. If you are in a relationship right now, a healthy relationship, hold your partner close and tell them how much you love them and how much you mean to them. If you're single or in a situationship, learn to love yourself more. Learn to act in a positive manner and become the best version of yourself for your own benefit. Thank you for listening. And as always, yours truly, the Romantic Cynic.